The road to the little town makes you feel like you're chasing the horizon. You leave the last gas station before dawn, the pump's fluorescent lights humming in the pre-dawn chill, and head west along a two-lane strip of asphalt that seems to go on forever. Telephone poles stride alongside you, their shadows long in the early light. The landscape opens up gradually. Barbed wire fences give way to endless stretches of scrub and cacti. The occasional cluster of cattle huddled around a stock tank, a hawk circling lazily overhead. Hours melt together, broken only by the sensation of your tires humming along the road and the ever-changing palette of the sky, from lavender dawn to blinding white midday. By the time you see the town, you're almost convinced it's a mirage. A few low buildings huddle around an oasis of green in the middle of an ocean of beige. At its center is a resort built from wood and stone, as if someone had carved a piece of the Rockies and set it gently into the desert. There are wide decks wrapped around the main lodge, draped with strings of small lights that wink in the late afternoon sun. Hammocks sway between posts, and the faint clink of ice and glasses drifts across the dusty yard. You check in, drop your bag in a cabin that smells of cedar and old campfires, and spend the afternoon wandering around the property, letting the tension of the drive seep out of your shoulders. Later, as dusk begins to paint the horizon, the staff light a bonfire in the pit off the deck. The chairs around it look almost comically large, carved from thick logs and softened with woven blankets. People begin to gather, plates of brisket and beans balanced on laps, plastic cups sweating in the desert air. The sky darkens from pale gold to deep indigo, stars pricking through one by one. You and your friend find seats near the fire. He's quiet, his eyes half closed as he lets the heat of the flames wash over him. You're restless, shifting and stretching, eager for conversation after so many hours alone with your thoughts. As you look around, two young women sit down opposite you. They introduce themselves in lilting, lightly accented English. Both are from Denmark. One, with curly blonde hair and a laugh that rings clear, tells you she teaches kindergarten. The other, whose dark hair escapes its bun and curls at her neck, is studying to become a school psychologist. They are sun-tired and smiling, the kind of travelers who seem to find home wherever they are. The four of you begin to talk. At first it's about travel, the endless expanse of Texas, the humming energy of Austin, the soft fog that clings to San Francisco's hills. Then it drifts to culture, differences that only reveal themselves when you're far from your own. You tell them about hot summers spent camping in the woods of your childhood, about falling asleep to the sound of tree frogs and cicadas. The kindergarten teacher's eyes sparkle as she listens. That is similar, she says. Nature takes care of us. In her world, babies sleep outside in the winter for hours, swaddled in wool and sheepskin, breaths making tiny clouds in the frigid air. She tells you this with a mixture of pride and amusement, describing how their mothers wheel prams onto balconies, trusting the cold to sharpen the lungs and calm the mind. You nod, smiling, and then, as you speak, you hear yourself say, "I grew up like that too." It's automatic, an easy story, a way to fit into the narrative of shared connection. In truth, it is a lie. Your childhood was not peaceful nights under the stars, but nights tense and alert, waiting to see if your father's mood would shift with the weather. In your house, nature did not soothe. It was the outside world you longed for, while navigating a home that felt like walking through a field of hidden mines. But tonight is not the night to open that door. This conversation is a delicate thing, its warmth fragile like the embers of the fire. So you let the lie stand, swallowing the bitterness it brings. You watch the sparks dance upward into the dark, and you pivot, asking them about their own families, about traditions that have nothing to do with pain. You tell yourself there will be time, somewhere on this long road, to sit with the truth of your past. For now, you keep the conversation moving, buoyant. The Danish women take the thread gladly. The kindergarten teacher speaks about her classroom, about little hands learning to tie knots and plant seeds. The school psychologist shares her passion for helping children who struggle, her belief that listening is a kind of medicine. When she tells you about winter naps and prams, she leans forward, eyes alight. We believe fresh air makes you strong, she says. We bundle them up, put them outside, and they sleep longer, eat better. It's just normal for us. She laughs when you raise an eyebrow. Maybe strange for you. You admit it's hard to imagine leaving a baby outside in January, but you also tell her that there is something beautiful in the trust it implies, in the belief that the world, even at its coldest, can hold you. The conversation widens. Parenting philosophies flow into broader reflections on what each of you assumed was normal, simply because it was all you knew. They ask you if Americans really put ice in everything, and you ask if it's true Danes leave their curtains open without worrying about privacy. You talk about how the sound of cicadas at night can be a lullaby or a siren song depending on where you are. In a moment of candor, perhaps prompted by the vulnerability of firelight, you almost mention your father's unpredictable moods, how they made you into someone hyper-aware of others. But you catch yourself. There will be time later, you tell yourself. Tonight, you want the sweetness of connection, not the sourness of confession. Instead, you ask the school psychologist what drew her to her field. I like puzzles, she answers after a pause, and kids are puzzles that grow. You help them figure out how to fit together. Her English is careful, but her meaning is clear. She looks away toward the flames for a moment, then back at you, and you feel that you understand one another despite the words you are not sharing. You realize how easily you've slipped into this group, how natural it feels to talk with them, how little you feel like censoring yourself except for that one lie lodged in your throat. Time becomes elastic, measured not in minutes, but in stories and bursts of laughter. Your friend stays mostly quiet, a small smile playing on his lips. He seems content to let you be the spokesperson, to watch the dance of conversation and soak in the comfort of the moment. The fire dies down to glowing coals. Someone brings over marshmallows, and you all laugh as you try to toast them without setting them aflame. The kindergarten teacher drops hers into the embers and squeals when it melts instantly. The school psychologist hands you one of hers in compensation, her fingers brushing yours briefly. Eventually, as with all good evenings, it has to end. You stand and stretch, aware of how the night has cooled. The air carries the metallic tang of distant rain and the earthy scent of wet sand. Together with the Danish women, you walk along the dimly lit path toward the cabins. The conversation has wound down, comfortable in its quiet. At the point where you must part, there's a hesitation. Words hover unspoken. Then the school psychologist reaches out and squeezes your hand. It is a small gesture, but it feels like an anchor, a recognition that this night has mattered. You hold on for a second longer than necessary, then let go. No one says goodbye. You each turn toward your separate doors and disappear into the darkness. The next morning is crisp and clear. You and your friend drive to a nearby state park known for its fossilized dinosaur tracks. The landscape is like another planet, all cracked limestone and spiky shrubs. You trace three-toed prints with your fingers and marvel at the deep grooves where tails once dragged. As you round a bend, you see the two Danish women ahead of you. The kindergarten teacher spots you first, her face breaking into a grin. "Twice in 2 days," she exclaims. The school psychologist raises a hand in greeting, her smile small but warm. Together, you wander between footprints preserved for millions of years. You compare shoe sizes to dinosaur toes, laugh at the thought of creatures the size of buses wandering through what is now a desert. You return to the conversation from the night before. The kindergarten teacher describes her niece who will not nap indoors after being accustomed to outdoor sleeps, how she cries until placed on the balcony. The school psychologist tells you about research linking fresh air to better appetite, stronger immunity. "We trust nature to take care of us," she says, echoing last night. You nod, feeling the words land differently now, knowing that trust is complicated. For some, nature is kind. For others, the only thing that could be trusted was the sound of cicadas through an open window, the smell of pine outside a tent. And yet, you recognize that what you long for on this road, on all these roads, is a sense of safety that doesn't depend on someone else's temper. As midday approaches, you each have to move on. They are heading north to another park. You and your friend are pushing west. Standing at the trail junction, sunlight bouncing off the limestone, you hesitate. You could ask for their numbers. You could promise to meet up in Santa Fe or share social media handles. But there's a part of you that cherishes the purity of encounters like this, complete unto themselves, not extended until they become something less special. So you smile, say, enjoy the rest of your trip, and watch as they walk away. The kindergarten teacher turns once to wave, her blonde hair catching the sun. The school psychologist raises two fingers in a small salute. Then they are gone, their laughter carried off by the wind. Driving away, desert stretching out around you, you think about the lie you told and the truth you held back. You imagine the babies sleeping outside in Danish winter, cheeks pink, breath steaming. You recall camping trips that were escapes from a house where silence was a shield, not a choice. You realize that telling those women that nature soothed you was only half false. It wasn't the childhood you had, but it is the adulthood you're carving for yourself now on these empty roads, this wide sky. The memory of the hand squeeze, the sound of foreign laughter mixing with the crackle of mesquite, stays with you. It becomes part of the story you are telling yourself about who you are and who you're becoming. And maybe you think you will find a time to tell the whole truth to someone, somewhere. For now, the desert holds your secrets.